Dear students, welcome to Unacademy platform. It's me Rakesh Kumar Jha. I welcome all of you for better understanding at Unacademy platform. Let's crack UPSC CSE exam with us. It is India's largest learning platform. We have also like daily live classes. We have also structured courses, live tests and quizzes, unlimited essays also. We do have our app, that is Unacademy learning app. So for all these things you have to just download Unacademy learning app. It's me Rakesh Kumar Jha. I'm an MA in political science from Ramjas College, Delhi University. I have also done my masters in mass communication. I have also participated in different talk shows as an expert on All India Radio, Akashvani, New Delhi, Lok Sabha TV, Raj Sabha TV, etc. I have successfully guided a large number of students, some of them IAS officers and police officers. It's me Rakesh Kumar Jha. My philosophy is that be your online. And what I have to say, that prepare with 100 top educators, rather more than top 100 educators with us at Unacademy platform. We have also comprehensive syllabus, that is polity, governance, IR and geography, science and technology, NCERT summary, history, optional courses, environment, ecology, art and culture. We do have current affairs that I will be taking, Indian economy, practice strategy, answer writing courses. And moreover, UPSC CSE subscription is there for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months and 12 months. Besides, we have also plus course and iconic course. If you go for iconic course, definitely it will serve your purpose. And for 12 months course is there, and then 24 months course. So you have to apply my code, that is RJ01. RJ01 is my reference code. If you apply this code, you can definitely have 10% discounts. Okay, so apart from this, we have also like live classes, test series, unlimited practice, structured schedule, personal coach, daily mains, question and practice, study planner, personalized feedback. So these are the things that you have to know. So I think that if you apply this RJ01, and then definitely you will have 10% discounts. Okay, so basic point is that these all things are there for optional subscription, and for introductory offers are there. These are the things. And a dedicated focus on optional subject, public administration is there, then political science, international relations, that I am also taking. A lot of other optional courses are there. Then there are lots of like subscription plans, and duration is there, so that we have to also take care. Besides, that learn more about me, I have also taken a special class on Unacademy platform that you can also Google. So right now I am going to discuss about political theory and Indian politics. This is the optional subject of political science that I am going to discuss about the political theory and thinkers, the part A. And right now I am going to discuss the part 3. It's me Rakesh Kumar Jha. I am a civil services coach, author and motivational speaker. So as usually, this is the complete table of content of public. This is PSIR, that is political science, international relations, optional subject, paper 1, as per the UPSC pattern. We will discuss it in various lectures. Definitely I have taken a lot of other classes as well. Right now I am going to discuss about the concept of power, hegemony, ideology and legitimacy. We are doing this topic right now, besides other different topics. Okay, so this is the kind of political theory and Indian politics. Part A, political theory and thinkers. Topics 2, concept of power, hegemony, ideology and legitimacy. Note, in our previous class we had discussed the concept of power. In this lecture we will discuss hegemony, ideology, legitimacy and little bit of topic 3, theories of the state, liberal also. So this is what I am going to discuss, dear students. So let us start with the hegemony. What is the hegemony, dear students? If I ask you, what do you suggest? What is the definition of hegemony that you can tell me? First of all, the notion of hegemony is especially difficult to enumerate, both in concrete political terms and in less tangible philosophical manner. It is the political, economic or military predominance or control of one state over others. In ancient Greece, 18th century BC, between 6th century CE, hegemony signified the political military supremacy of a city-state over the other city-states. Dominant state is known as the hegemon. The basic thing is that when anything dominates other, maybe it is a kind of ancient Greece when this is the political military supremacy of a city state over the others. That is a kind of, suppose America is a state, Russia is a state, I mean nation state I am talking about in the political science. You don't confuse that it is the state of any particular countries like UP and like MP. I am talking about the nation state. So since you are the student of political science, so you have to also understand what is the meaning of nation state. I feel that why I am talking this, because nation state is a kind of thing that you have to also understand. And when any state dominates other, either in terms of ideology, in terms of economic, militarily, and the superpowers are hegemony across the world. Or suppose USA is a country, or Russia is a country, Britain is a country, particularly the US hegemony, when I call it, it means what? Whatever USA is saying or dictating other, that whether the political or the economic or the military predominance, these are the dictation that you can say. So hegemony is something like this, that you have to also understand. And in ancient Greece also, that is in the 8th century, that you have to also understand the hegemony signified the political military supremacy of a city state over the city states. So this is a kind of dominant state. So I mean to say that when you understand this hegemony, is a very important term that you have to also understand the political, economic, military predominance or the control of the other states. And this is the philosophy that you have to also understand. And any state, any city which they claim to be hegemony, they are known as a hegemon. So this is the thing that you have to know. All these things are very important, and I feel that if you know this is there, that is very important. So this basic information you have to know. And why I am highlighting these all topics, why I am highlighting these all circumstances, because of this particular way of thinking. And political science is a subject, dear students, that you have to understand in a very nitty-gritty way. You have to feel that what I can do in a better way. You have to also know that okay, this is the thing that you can do in a perfect and rightful manner. This is the hegemony that I am talking right now. The 19th century, hegemony represented the social or cultural predominance, just I have talked to you now, that or ascendancy, predominance by one group with a society. I mean in 19th century, the hegemony represented that the social and cultural predominance, as when we say that Western cultures are predominant or Western values are dominant in our society. What does it mean? It is a kind of Western hegemony. Maybe it is a cultural kinds of thing or the social kinds of thing, but after all it is what? It is a kind of everything that you have to understand. When anything dominates, maybe the ideas, maybe your culture, maybe your economic power, maybe your military power. So basically it denotes the domination. When you rule something, when you dictate something, when you say something, when people or other parts of the world are bound to follow these things, this is what a kind of hegemony. And this is the 19th century definition that I have just shared with you. Afterwards, it could be used to mean a group or regime which exerts undue influence within a society. Also, it could be used for your geopolitical and cultural predominance of one country over others, from which was derived hegemony. So, also you have to understand that what is hegemonism means. So I think that if you go by this, then definitely you will understand this nitty-gritty, and I definitely can assure you it will definitely help you. So I mean to say you have to understand this thing. It means that the great powers meant to establish European hegemony over Asia. I just told you that the European countries, Western countries, and Africa. So that great powers, mean the superpowers, they were tried to establish the European hegemony over Asia and Africa. In theoretical viewpoint, hegemony is the expression of society's ruling classes over the majority of the nation or a state over whom they propose to rule. So I mean to say that if you understand this topic, you have to also understand that how it is going to help you. Gramsci describes hegemony as a conception of the world that is implicitly manifest in art, in law, in economic activity, and in all manifestations of individual and collective life. This is what you have to also understand. So I think that this is going to be very, very important for you. This is going to be very, informative kind. And Gramsci is a thinker, he is a Marxist thinker that you have to understand. And what describes it is a conception of the world. Basically, this is the conception of the world that is implicitly manifestations in the art, in law, in economic activity, and in all manifestations of individuals and collective life. This is what you have to also describe. So when you describe all sort of things, you have to be very specific. You have to be very all the times to be honest enough to understand this nitty-gritty. So I think that if you understand this nitty-gritty, only then you can do these things in a proper and rightful manner. Okay, so this is the 19th century hegemony representations, the social or cultural predominance you have to understand. And what Gramsci has stated about what other people have told these things. These all things you have to narrate. And I hope that if you understand this nitty-gritty, definitely it will help you. Okay, dear students, next I am going the 5 dimensions of the concept of hegemony. What are the 5 dimensions of the concept of hegemony that you have to also understand? There are 5 basic dimensions of hegemony that range from obvious to more subtle. These are explained as under. What are these? Just you have to understand. The first one is the military. The hegemon has the strongest military in the world, considerably stronger than any of its rivals. Its military alliance system is significantly stronger than any rival military blocks. So this is what basic point is, that the student you have to understand that there are different dimensions of hegemony. The first one is the military one. The hegemon has the strongest military in the world and considerably stronger than any of its rival. Definitely these are the things that we have to also understand. Next I am going to discuss about the economic power, and the hegemon has the biggest and most technologically advanced economy in the world. So this is also you have to understand that you have the biggest and most technologically advanced economy in the world. It is a major trading partner of most of the nations of the world, including most of the major powers. That we have to also understand. Political is there. The hegemon has array of political allies and friendly relations with the most nations and major powers. That we have to also understand about the political power, political hegemons, political dominant, and the institutional one. That is the hegemon working with its associate makes most of the rules that govern global political and economic relations. The hegemon along with its allies usually control most of the international institutions. Thus, most of the policies of the international institutions favor the hegemon and its partners. That you have to also try to understand this thing. That if it is, the hegemon has the biggest and most technological. So in all sense, we have to define that the dominance either in terms of economic, either in military, or in the political, or in the institutional, that you have to understand. The 5 is ideological. That we have to also understand. The hegemon mainly determines the terms of discourse in international relations. Marx wrote, the ruling ideas of any age are the ideas of the ruling class. Currently, the predominant ideas about globalization are the ideas of hegemon. This is what the ideological. The basic thing is that whatever the pre-independence era, you should see that these are the people, particularly the Western countries, ruled the whole world, either on over Asia or over Africa. That is there you have to understand. And even after that, politically you are free, but economically you are dependent, technologically you are dependent. So what happens is that you have all things are lying with them, and ultimately you have to go with them. So this is the kind of hegemony that we have to also understand. So I feel that these all things are very important, be it the military power or the economic hegemony, political hegemony, institutional hegemony, and ideological hegemony. These all things are still there. So that is why Marx says this, like Marx's theory of cultural hegemony. What is this cultural hegemony? Related particularly with Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci is saying it is the idea that the ruling class can influence value system and the customs of a society so that their view becomes the world view. According to Terry Eagleton, Gramsci normally uses the word hegemony to mean the ways in which a governing power wins consent to its rule from those it subjugates. This is what you have to also understand. So, I think that if you understand all these things, what is your cultural hegemony? Basically, like lifestyle, the food style. Nowadays you can see the McDonald. Now people are wearing jeans pant and everything, irrespective of the climatic zones, and everything is out there. This is what a change is going to happen. Everything is like in a dimensional. So that is what you have to also understand. Next is that contrasting to authoritarian rule, cultural hegemony is hegemonic only if those affected by it also consent to and struggle over its common sense. So this is the kind of cultural hegemony that I have discussed. Ramsey also defines cultural hegemony, which was of a particular significance when he was writing in 1930s in a world that was dominated by ideological concerns. This kind of hegemony and cultural control is a persistent political reality that has been a feature of culture and society since the first recorded migration of man. This is what a kind of Ramsey defines, and that you have to also mention. So I think you have to mention all these integrity and facts. The next one is that Athenians made hegemony an everyday feature of the ancient world, whereby people were defined through their status within the broader Greek political and cultural hierarchy. The Greeks emphasized their cultural ideal of hegemony with language and politics, especially the concept of citizenship, which is the major feature in the study of political and cultural hegemony. That you have to also understand. So I think if you understand all these things, then definitely your understanding of hegemony will be more and more. Next point I have to discuss, the United States uses its visa system, for example, to distinguish between alien visitors from within the wider plates of the hegemony that it has created. The visa system is like that, and definitely that you have to also understand. In the ancient world, Plato and Aristotle categorized several types of hegemony together to form civilization. Therefore, to be an Athenian, Greek was to be a civilized member of the hegemony of the emerging nation state. To be a barbarian was to be uncivilized member of the outpost of the society, the parts where hegemony had previously failed to infiltrate as a paradigm, as a cultural and economic force. This phenomenon has since been reflected in the 21st century with the President Bush with us or against us stance to global terrorism, where hegemony was once again used as the primary force in the continuation of the dominant military, political, and economic power of that period. It means what? When President Bush said that either with us or against us, because that time the then president of United States of America, clearly said, because if you are not with us, it is seen or it seems that you are against us. It means what? The America can attack any country with or without the permission of particular sovereign nation. So this is what a kind of things when hegemony or any dominance is that. It is, since it is a old practice, you can see that in the old age era also, when barbarian society was there, where a kind of tribal society, the feudal things were there, in those days also the dominance and the cultural dominance economic dominance, military dominance, every kinds of dominance were existing. It is not new in the Indian society, it is not new in the world society, it is not new in the world order. So precisely and primarily we have to focus, you have to know some philosophers name, like what these people have been, Gramsci is saying, what Marx is saying, these all things, what Plato and Aristotle had told, these all things. So what Plato and Aristotle has said, have said all these things, so that you have to also take care. And I think if you take care of all these things, your concept will be very precisely very good and very narrative kinds of things. You will be comfortable in the writing while the questions would be asking in the examination hall. This is what a kinds of hegemony. The next is that it becomes obvious that hegemony must coexist with the comprehensive notion of empire, which is itself constructed upon the concrete foundations of economic and dynamic harvesting throughout the procurement of resources. The notion of empire changed, especially during the beginning of modern history, where industrialization proved to be the catalyst for the significant seismic shift in the view of hegemony as a cultural, economic, and political benchmark. The 19th century was also certainly a crisis in terms of redrawing of the conceptual limitations of the hegemony. These all things you have to understand in a different notion, and I hope that you will definitely understand these things. It will definitely change your perceptions, and definitely you will understand in a better thing. Okay, now I am going to tell the more concept. The Victorian period observed the traditional European empire of France, Belgium, Britain, and Germany used their vast military and economic superiority to carve up the undeveloped world amongst each other, with the procurement of raw materials and economic resources utilized as the main motivation for extra territorial action. This is what you have to also understand, and I think if you understand these things, definitely it will have a far reaching impact on this thing. So please try to understand, and I think that concept building is very much important. Dear students, you have to understand that political science is a subject where you have to see every nitty-gritty, where you have to see all these things that is required for a great answer, for a good answer, beautiful answer, mark fetching answer. Okay, dear students. So this way we have finished the hegemony, we have already finished the power. Now I am going to discuss about ideology. What is ideology? Ideology has been the subject that caught great attention during the last halt of the 20th century. Ideology has reoccurred as an important theme of inquiry among social, personality, and political psychologists. Ideology is one of the few terms to have originated in political science, having apparently been developed by Count Antonio Destutt de Dressy, who survived the revolution, to publish Elements Dialogue in 1817. The term has been contentious almost from its conception. Story. This is what you have to understand, and I think the ideology is what you might have heard about. Gandhian ideology, you might have heard about, lots of ideologies are there. So this is what you have to understand, and I feel that if you understand these things, then definitely it will help you. And I hope that if you understand all these things, then it is definitely going to help you to understand you ideology is all about. In fundamental term, an ideology is belief or set of beliefs, especially the political beliefs, on which people, parties, or countries base their actions. It is a plan of action for applying this idea. Basically, thinks that when the people have the same ideology, like the BJP having the same ideology, I think the other Congress party having the same ideology. Ideology means what? Whatever the things are very much detrimental for any kinds of political party or an individual. Individual is also said to have an ideology, and that ideology drives him, that ideology motivates him, that ideology really take him away. This is what you have to understand. In a wider perspective, ideology can be explained as the way a system, a single individual, even a whole society, rationalizes itself. Ideologies may be idiosyncratized, impractical, or even delusions, but they still share the features of coherence and temporal stability. In the view of Erikson and Tedin, ideology is a set of beliefs about the proper order of society and how it can be achieved. So this is a kind of thing that you have to understand, and I hope that if you know all these things about the ideology, it will widen up your knowledge about the ideology. Napoleon used ideologue as a nickname to indicate irrational dedication to democratic principle. By the mid 19th century, the main principle of the ideologue's popular sovereignty was attacked from both the right and the left. Marxist theory used to use the concept of ideology to define the process through which the dominant ideas within a given society reflects the interest of a ruling economic class. However, ideology has established a problematic notion, as many of its advocates have treated it as a relatively stable body of knowledge that the ruling class transmits wholesale to its subordinate classes. This is what you have to also understand. So I think that if you go by this, then definitely it will help you, and I hope by defining all these things you will have a better condition, you will have a better things out there. So please try to understand about the ideology and ideologue. These are the things that you have to understand. Next, the Karl Marx I am talking here. Karl Marx confronted liberal democratic ideology, criticizing it is a rational or for class operation. The negative implications of ideology was reinforced by Karl Mann, who contended that ideology was inherently conservative because it derived its ideal model of society from the past, and who contrasted it with utopian thinking, which he defined as the future oriented. David McLean stated that ideology is the most elusive concept in the whole of the social sciences. This is what different narratives are there. What Karl Marx said, what David McLean said, what other people have said. So these are the things that you have to also take care. And I hope that if you understand this nitty-gritty, if you understand these all topics, it will definitely serve your purpose. It will definitely have to say. And I hope that please try to understand this thing. It will have a lot of say to say, right? Okay. Next is that what Hall has said. Hall has appraised moments of theoretical and interruptions in the cultural and theories of ideology. These include the discourse theories of post-structuralism and postmodernism on one hand, and the impact of feminist and critical race scholarship on the other. The description of post-structuralism is important for grounding the salience of language as a medium of social power. In contrast, feminist theory contributes the notion of the personal dimensions of the political power, highlights questions about gender. Similarly, critical race theory focuses on rationalized patterns of power and destabilizes the class subject. So this is what you have to also understand, and I feel that you should understand contrast, you should understand these things, and what Stuart Hall have said, what other people have said. These all concepts, these all notions you have to also understand. Now next is that in the start of the 20th century, the term ideology was rarely employed beyond limited references concerning political philosophy. This obscurity was apparent in the pages of the review. Basically, a political ideology is a belief system that provides a perspective on various political issues, such as the proper role of elected officials and the types of public policies that should be prioritized also. I think that if you can go through this, then definitely it would help you, and I hope that it will really help you. Okay, now I am going to discuss about ideology, power. We had discussed hegemony and ideology, and the next I am going to discuss legitimacy. What is What do you mean by legitimacy? That we have to also discuss. The political science. In political science, legitimacy is the widespread acceptance of an authority, usually a governing law or a regime. Political legitimacy is considered a rudimentary condition for governing, without which the government will suffer legislative impasse and collapse. In political system where this is not the case, unpopular regimes survive because they are considered legitimate by small influential choices. In Chinese political philosophy, during the historical period of the Zhou dynasty, the political legitimacy of a leader and government was derived from the mandate of him, and unjust rulers who lost said mandate therefore lost the right to rule the people. This is the things that you have to also understand, and I hope that if you understand these all things, it will really help you in understanding everything is out there. This is about the legitimacy that you have to also understand, and I hope that everything is out there is very important. So legitimacy is there, and that legitimacy you have to also understand in a very nitty-gritty way. Types of legitimacy. So what is legitimacy? When I say something is legitimate, when I say something is legitimate, so basically withdrawing power, withdrawing authority from a certain institution that is acceptable for everyone is called the legitimacy. That we have to also understand. Now I am talking about the legitimacy. Legitimacy is a value whereby something or someone is acknowledged and accepted as right and proper. In political science, legitimacy generally is understood as the popular acceptance and recognition by the public of the authority of a governing regime, whereby the authority has political power through consent and mutual understandings, not the pressure. German sociologist Max Weber explained the three types of political legitimacy. So Max Weber, he is a German sociologist, he is talking about three types of political legitimacy. The first one is that the traditional, second one is the charismatic, and third one is that rational, that is the legal one. So the traditional legitimacy derives from societal custom and habit that highlight the history of authority of tradition. Traditionalists understand this form of the rule as historically accepted. Hence it is continuity because it is the way society has always been. Therefore, the institutions of traditional government usually are historically continuous as in monarchy and tribalism. So what you have to also about the traditional legitimacy, and that time the societal customs and habit that were the part of the authority of the tradition, and traditionalists understand this form of rule as a historically acceptance, and it is continued, society always accepted it. This is a kind of traditional legitimacy. Then I am talking about the charismatic legitimacy. So charismatic legitimacy originates from the idea and personal magnetism of the leader or a person whose authoritative persona charms and psychologically dominates the people of the society, the agreement with the government's regime and the rule. So this is a kind of charismatic legitimacy. So basically, charismatic, suppose then first Prime Minister of India, people were having a lot of having a kind of affection and everything with the then Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru. Likewise, Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi was there, Indira Gandhi was there, and even Mahatma Gandhi was a charismatic person. So, I talk about the governments and rules. So, predominantly by the Prime Minister. A charismatic government usually features feeble political and administrative institutions because they derive authority from the persona of the leader and usually disappear without the leader in power. However, if the charismatic leader has a successor, a government derived from charismatic legitimacy might continue. So this is what you have to also understand, and I hope that if you know all these things, what is charismatic legitimacy, what is legitimacy, then you can deal better with. Next is that the rational legitimacy, or that is legal legitimacy, that evolves from a system of the institutional procedure wherein the government institutions establish and enforce law and order in the public interest. Therefore, it is through public trust that the government will abide by the law, and that confirms rational legal legitimacy. This is also very important. And you see, the rational means it should be logical, it should be legal one. Only then it is called the legal legitimacy. So I think that these all legal legitimacy that you have to understand. And I have talked about the charismatic, I have talked the traditional one, I have talked the rational one. So these all legitimacy you have to understand, and you have to not only understand, rather you have to know with the facts and figures, with the examples also, you have to elaborate also, and so that, because you know rational is a very important one, and now we have to understand the rational legitimacy, because it is through public trust that the government will abide by the law, that confers rational legal legitimacy. This is also very important. Next one is that the significance of legitimacy. You can also talk of that, sir, what is the significance, what is the relevance of the legitimacy? Yes, definitely I am here to elaborate the point. Legitimacy is significant for all regimes. Very true, but without legitimacy, nothing can survive, nothing can happen. So I can say that legitimacy sustains political constancy. As you know, it establishes the reasonableness of a regime, or says provide reason for the regime to exist. Whoever point out that the regime must arouse legitimacy, belief of the people if they tend to maintain their rule. Election, significant element of democracy, is very important in the process of legitimation. Authoritarian regimes also tend to continue election, even non-competitive election. So these are the things that we have to know. It is because election contributes to provide justification for the existence of a regime, thus consolidates its legitimacy. Hey would. This is what the thing about the significance of legitimacy you have to know, because until unless you don't know the significance, you cannot justify your answer. So these all bullet points are very important for understanding the significance of legitimacy, and I hope that if you understand these things, it will definitely help you. Okay dear students, now I am going to have a different dimensions also. Another device for regime to get legitimacy is the constitution. Very true, because nowadays being a set of rules which lays down a framework in which government and political activity are conducted. Its legitimization function can be analyzed on two ways. First, constitution is almost prerequisite for a state to be recognized by other states, where the external legitimacy comes from. On the other hand, constitution can be used to promote respect and compliance among the domestic population, thus building up internal legitimacy. So I think that if it is there, you have to be very clear that what are the things, what are the pros and cons that you have to understand, what legitimacy is there, and how this framework can be done. So I think this is the very important part, and I hope that without it nothing can happen. So definitely you have to try, you have to know the things, and I think that without this nothing can happen. Next is that according to Samuel Huntington, a regime with a strong legitimacy must have three kinds of legitimacy. So what Samuel Huntington says is a very important political philosopher, political thinker. We have to also understand Samuel Huntington's concept. The first is ideological legitimacy. That is, the value propositions of the regime must be generally voluntarily recognized the people. Enforced ideological indoctrination is difficult to sustain such kind of legitimacy. This is very important. That is, you have to know the ideological legitimacy. Second is procedure legitimacy. That what is the procedural legitimacy? The formation, change, and the operation of a regime must be checked by citizens' vote. The ruling authority is limited and restricted by the constitution or the legal procedures that you have to also understand. And besides that, the third is performance legitimacy, which means that a regime supported by people should have satisfied performance. This is also a very important thing that you have to know what Samuel Huntington has said. Ideological legitimacy is there, the procedure legitimacy is there, and then performance legitimacy is there. So these are the things that you have to also understand what the Samuel Huntington has said, that first one ideological legitimacy, second one the procedure legitimacy, and third one is the performance. Now I am talking for a regime that only based on single legitimacy. If our performance is unsatisfied, people may question the value and the process which the regime based on. Thus, legitimacy crisis would occur. Definitely, the legitimacy crisis would occur. Therefore, he stated that the economic crisis is a political barrier that makes it difficult for authoritarian regime to come across. It can be said that the political legitimacy is the people's recognition and acceptance of the validity of the rules of their entire political system and the decisions of their rulers. This is what you have to also understand, and I think that if you understand these all things, it will definitely help you. I feel that without this, everything can be possible. No, you have to understand all these things what Samuel Huntington has said, and definitely it will help you in the understanding of legitimacy. Next, I am going to discuss about political theory and Indian politics, part A, that is the political theory and thinkers, topic 3. As we have finished topic number 1 and topic number 2, the nature and significance of political theory, then we have discussed the power and hegemony and ideology, legitimacy, and now we have entered into topic number 3, that is theories of the state, the liberal one. Okay, now I am going to discuss the another chapter, that is the theory of states, theories of the state, the liberal one. What is the liberal theory? And it is a very important aspect that we have to discuss. What is the state? Okay, students, right now, first of all, before starting, we have to discuss what is a state. What is a state, that we have to also discuss. So a state is a planned political structure that operates under a government. What is the state? It is a state planned political structure that operates under a government, and states may be categorized as independent if they are not dependent or subject to any other power or state. States are considered to be subject to the external dominion or hegemony if their ultimate sovereignty lies in another state. An amalgamated state is territorial, constitutional community that forms part of a federation. Such states differ from sovereign states in that they have transferred a portion of their sovereign powers to a federal government. So I think that this is very important, and I think that unless until if you don't know this, it is very difficult. So the state is a planned political structure that operates under a government. So I mean to say that if you have to understand this, all these things, it should be like that. So before trying to do all these things, you have to understand all these nitty-gritty. So I can understand the state and the definition of the state. So you have to also narrate about the state, and everything is out there. So this is all about the state. Now, most political theories of the state can approximately be grouped into two categories. Here you have to just think that the most political theories of the state can approximately be grouped into two categories. What are the categories? The first one is that which includes liberal or conservative theory. Treats capitalism as a given and concentrates on the function of states in the capitalist society. Theories of this variety view the state as a neutral entity distinct from both society and the economy. Also, you have to also understand. So basically, you have to understand about the political theory. You have to understand about the liberal and conservative theory. We have to understand about the theories of different kinds. These all things you have to know, because state is a very vast and important subject. Because political science you are studying, you have to know state in a full-fledged manner. What are the theories? What are the tools? And what are the concepts that you have to know? Next, I am talking the liberalism. Liberalism is a phrase used in several ways in political thought and social science. Liberalism is the best characterized as many arguments that have been classified as liberal and recognized as such by other self-proclaimed liberals over time and space. The indispensable characteristics of the liberal theory of the state is the dogma of jurisdiction. That is the idea that there is such a thing as a limited area of power and authority for the state, a delimitation of its proper sphere, beyond which it is inadequate for the state to trespass. This principle is essentially the sole preserve of liberals that you have to also understand. This is what the liberalism is. This is what indispensable characteristic is, and I think that this must be understood by the UPSC civil servant aspirant, because this is important to know what is liberalism, what is a state, what are the jurisdictions, what are the theories. So these are the very important aspects of political science, and you have to understand every nitty-gritty, because if you don't know these things, then you are missing something. If you are missing something, then how you can answer the questions that will be asked in the mains examination. It is sure that you have to know all these facts and figures. You have to know all these things so that it will be value based things. Okay, now I have to say the first principle of the liberal theory of the state is that the state is not superior to other institutions. However, the state will generally be substandard to other institutions in the respective fields of the space competence of those other institutions. The state is inferior to the church for elaborating moral values or the conduct of government. The state is simply one social institution amongst many. Each has its proper sphere. This is very well definition that you have to understand. The first principle that you have to understand is that it is the liberal theory of the state, that the state is not superior to other institutions. That you have to also understand when I talk that the state is not superior to other states. It is not the superior to the other institutions. The state will generally be substandard to other institutions in the respective fields of the special competence of those other institutions. The state is inferior to the church for elaborating moral values or the conduct of the government. The state is simply one social institution amongst many. It has its proper sphere. So it means what? The state has a very limited role. But what is happening in nowadays? The state plays as an extra constitutional role. The state is, it is written there that you have to understand. It is not superior to the other institution. If you are the state, I am here although institution. You are the institution, we are all those institution. If you are running a state, it does not mean that whatever you can do at your will, because there are certain rules and regulations. Where here you have withdrawn the power, where you have withdrawn the superiority authority. If someone says that I am from police department, I am from this department, no, all people are doing jobs according to the given authority, according to the work skill. That is the point that we have to also take care all these things. This is about the liberalism talks about, and that should be. Next is that the state has its proper sphere. Definitely, the state had its proper sphere that I am. You have to understand. It should not appropriate that the sphere of the other institution might be described as a rule of internal management, a presumption that each institution is the appropriate authority for the management of those matters which pertains to it. Second principle of the liberal theory of the state is that the state ought to respect the fault principle. The state ought not to punish or impose any deterrent upon any man except on the basis of his fault, strict liability being applicable in exceptional circumstances. This is what you have to also understand. The second principle that we have discussed is this, and the states of the proper sphere we have also discussed. Next is that the state ought not to recompense those who are responsible for their claim worthlessness. The state ought not otherwise promote guilty conduct or to attach disincentiveness to various conduct in any way. If these principles were observed within the welfare sector, the sector would be structured very differently. Welfare would be restricted to the genuinely and needy. Third principle of the liberal theory says that the sovereignty of law and adherence to established proper procedures. The fourth principle of the liberal theory of a state represents that the power of the state ought to be split and distributed amongst many centers. These are the things that you have to know, and I hope that if you understand all these things, only then you can have the liberal theories conception, only then you can elaborate liberalism, and liberalism is very important for the survival of democracy. Without liberalism nothing can happen, and I think this is the right time to understand the liberalism in a broader sense. Next is that this principle is found on the observation expressed in Lord Acton's aphorism. So this is what the Lord Acton's thing is, that power corrupts. Very important, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what the Lord Acton says. It is by minimizing the concentration of power in any one center and by setting up many alternatives, counterbalancing center of powers, that the standard of everything open and above board more nearly attained and opportunities for corruption are minimized. This is what you have to understand. So I think that if you understand, it is very important, and I hope that is going to help you in a very very larger perspective. Please understand this Lord Acton's view that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what you have to also understand in a very nitty-gritty way. Okay. The next is that the positive liberal theory of the state emerged from the problem of protection of liberty. Liberalism avoids the absolute state, confirming the superior value of individual liberty, but it also recognizes dangers of chaos in the context of human race, which is polluted with evil. Definitely, because people liberalism avoids absolute state, and it also says that the man should not have unlimited kinds of freedom, because it will definitely have a kind of race, because human race which is polluted with evil. The declaration that human race is fouled with evil is intended to communicate the awareness that there exist standards of virtue and perfection, and the human race as a whole fail on these standards. The liberal philosophy is the acquittal of every claim that humanity or human nature can be made to be righteous. These are the things that have to talk about the liberalism, and I hope that if you understand these things, then you can narrate these things in a very nitty-gritty way, because these are the important perspectives, these are the important things that you have to know in a very rightful manner. So I think that about the liberalism you have to know a lot of things. It is very suspicion reveal and believe in unreliability of those who claim to be both virtuous and all-knowing, directly drives liberalism to support limitations and decentralization of power. Lord Acton's fierce repetition: power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Liberalism confirms more values and opposes relativism. It does not capitulate to the false doctrine of moral neutrality. This is what you have to also understand, and I think that if you understand these things, it will definitely help you in understanding the liberalism. Liberalism is the main pillar of democracy. Without liberalism nothing can be conceivable. This is what you have to also understand, and Lord Acton says that the power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is the things, these are the quotations that you have to also take care in yourself, so that you can write a better answer. Next, the modern state greatly surpasses the liberal model of limited government. Whether the theory is liberal or conservative, that is not major concern. Main concern is that if the state is liberal, to what extent and which style the state adopts liberal methods and processes for the administration and representation of the law. Liberalism means to avoid conservativeness or to avoid restrictions in policy making, enactment, and administration of the state. The basic thing is that you have to also understand that what is liberalism? To avoid conservatism, avoid restrictions in policy making, enactment, and administration of a state. So these things are very important, and I hope that if you do all these things, it will definitely help you. Next is that it has been presumed that the restrictions or any type of conservativeness adopted by the government will control the liberty and simultaneously the spontaneity of the individuals, leading to the slowdown of development of men's personality, individuality, and intrinsic quality that you have to understand. Therefore, a liberal state signifies a limited government or a limited state. It can also be called a theory of limited state presented by a number of philosophers. The term limited state may be confusing. It exactly means limited functions and role of the state, or non-intervention of the state. This is what you have to also understand, and I hope that if you understand all these things, you will have a greater impact on all these particular topics. This is what the liberalism means. The notion of the liberal state can also be elucidated from another perspective. It has been maintained by a recent opponent that all elements of liberal era confer certain rights and privileges upon persons, and these must be protected at any cost. So a liberal state is one which gives importance to the cause of the individuals. In the controversy individuals versus state, liberal state always favors the interest cause of the individuals. This is what you have to also understand. So I feel that this is the notion, and that I can understand in a better way. So I feel that everything can be possible, everything can be done if you understand these topics in a proper and rightful manner, because every notion plays an important role in decisive your creative thinking, creative writing. The liberal state is contradictory to conservative, authoritarian, and totalitarian state. The meaning of liberal is respectful and accepting of behaviors or opinions different from others. A state is liberal when it recognizes the opinions, attitudes, and behavior of individuals and does not think this as a hazard to the existence and administration of a state. There are differences among the political theorists and political scientists as to the functions of the liberal state, but there is a common element among them, and all is that individuals must have maximum liberty so that their free development does not receive any influence due to the state policy action. This is what liberalism talks. So finally you have to come to the conclusion that there are differences among the political theorists and political scientists as to the functions of liberal state, but there is a common element among them all, that it is that individuals must have maximum liberty so that their free development does not receive any hindrance due to a state policy of action. This is the definition of liberalism that we have to understand, and I think if you understand this thing, then definitely the liberal state, liberalism, liberal theories you can understand, and I hope that by defining all these points you will be in the better position to understand these things. Okay, now next is that the next class we will be discussing features of the liberal state. It will definitely have a good interesting class, and I welcome all of you in the next class. So my code is RJ01. Please apply this code and you can have a 10% discount, and please join me to Telegram, also Rakesh Jha Discourse Academy. It will definitely help you. Please like, share, and subscribe it. Okay, so once again I am telling dear student why I have discussed all this nitty-gritty, why I have said all these things, just because of your notion, just because of your say that if you understand these things, it will definitely help you, because political science is a subject where you can enjoy, where you can write. A lot of topics are from different fields, and these all topics will be also helpful in the GS paper, because you have to face 4 GS paper, you have to write 4 GS paper, and most of the topics are very much similar and common in GS paper. And it will also help you in the essay paper also, interview also. And moreover, because theory part is okay, it is a traditional part, it is a theoretical part, but when I talk about part B, that will be very relevant and very interesting part. And when I talk about second paper like the international relations, so these are the topics that are very important. Like suppose if you know about the American elections, you have to know all these things nitty-gritty in the current affairs also, in the political science also, and in the GS paper also. So primarily it will have a lot of advantage over other things as well. I hope that you can understand the gravity and severity of political science. Political science is a very important topic, and it will widen up your interest area. So I think please you take up this idea, please have this idea in a better way, and definitely it will help you in understanding. It will open up a lot of things. Once again, thank you very much. And I can say you that you can Google my name on the YouTube Unacademy Rakesh Kumar Jha. Through this type, you can have a lot of discussions. I have a lot of classes, previous class on political science. I have also given lectures on writing skills you can have. So these are the things that you can have with the Unacademy platform. So thank you very much, dear students, and wish you best of luck. Stay safe, stay all the time fit, and everything should be there. So thank you very much. Best of luck, dear student. Thank you.